I'm probably going to get a tomato thrown at me or something, but I think we need to greet each other today, give a high five, tell each other how happy you are to see each other in church today. So if you would take a minute and a half, 90 seconds is all you have. Greet those around you, please. Hello there, Cindy. How you doing, Archie?
No one's asked if we can anoint after service.
Okay. With everybody here? Yes? Yes? Okay. We can do it. We have a chair we can set her in. You'll get one before the end of the sermon? I don't need it right now. Good morning, sir. Okay, your 90 seconds is up. I just want all you ladies to notice that I was going to say that the last people standing are men talking, but all right. Don was trying to count while you were running around. I think we got a count of about 82 or 97 or something like that. It's like herding sheep. Well, before we get into our sermon today, and I want to welcome those of you who are joining us online and those of you who are here. We love being in worship together, and I always like to have a little fun with something. So I saw this really cute picture this week. It doesn't have anything to do with my sermon, but I thought we just would put this up on the screen today. Purebred. It just tickled me a little bit. So next week, all you cat lovers can have equal time. Bring me a cat picture, and that's cute. We'll put something up there. Thank you, Barb, for doing that. We are in a series called Balancing Life's Demands. And as you know, we live in a never-ending stress to produce more and more and more every day. The pandemic has left us, some of us, very, very fearful, and others overwhelmed. We fall into bed at night and we wonder, will the rat race ever stop? Some of us are going so fast, we just can't imagine what it would be like to get off the rat race. Soon we find ourselves thinking, my boss, my spouse, my kids are all driving me crazy. I just want to go to a deserted island for a while and get away. A guy cuts us off in traffic and instantly we are in road rage manner. We're spinning out of control and trying to either go faster or faster or faster, and it just never ends. It's like a roller coaster. I don't know about you, but I love roller coasters. But the fun part is not the up, slow, 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 slow. It's the zoom, 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 zoom that goes after it, isn't it? Speed is intoxicating to us. I can remember the very first roller coaster I ever went on. My parents took my brother and I to Pacific Ocean Park in California. When you see scenes on TV of the Santa Monica Pier with the roller coaster and all of that, that's the roller coaster I'm talking about. I was just a little boy, and my brother and I would ride that roller coaster, and we'd run around and we'd get in line and we'd go on it again and again and again and again and again. We just seemed to have just an intoxication with speed. You take your little child, take your grandchildren to a park, take them to a merry-go-round. What do they say when you move it? Faster, faster, Daddy, Have you ever heard them say, slower, Daddy, slower? No, that's Grandma over here in the corner saying, slow it down, slow it down. But I want to share a fact with you today. Faster is not always better. Faster is not always better. It's in your outline if you're following with your outline. Now, I have to admit, if you're in week 39 of your pregnancy, faster is absolutely better. If you're waiting for an ambulance to come and pick your loved one up because they've had an emergency, faster is always better. But for most of us in life, faster is not always better. But today we find ourselves checking our smartphones for messages and emails. We're asking Google or Siri for answers we used to find in an encyclopedia. I won't even ask you, well, I'm going to ask you, but don't raise your hand. Do any of us still have encyclopedias in our house? Yeah. Those of us that are nearly 100 years old still have them. A leading study today says the average person works 8.6 hours a day, 6 days a week. 60% of them would say they are burned out. Some of you in this room, if you were being honest, would say, I'm burned out. Then you figure out inflation and tight margins and staffing shortages, and we see businesses doing things that we would have never dreamed they would have done. We have a restaurant in town that adds 3.5% inflation charge to your bill and never tells you about it. But if you look at the bottom of your receipt, there it is. And so when I asked the server, what's this 3.5% charge, he just stammered. Finally said, well, we didn't want to print a new menu, so we just added 3.5% to everybody's bill. I said, you need to tell us ahead of time. We have another restaurant in town, and I'm not going to throw them under the bus and put them all over the internet so you know who they are, but you can ask me privately and I'll tell you. We have another restaurant in town that when you order your meal, if like our son and daughter-in-law are gluten-free, so if bread comes with it, they want it on a separate plate, they charge you an extra $1 for the plate. It's a restaurant in town here. They charge you an extra $1 for a plate. Recently, Brenda and I were in a McDonald's in another town. We went inside to place our order, and I stood there, and nobody would come to the counter. And there were 2 or 3 people standing just a few feet away, and I said, would one of you help me? And they said, you have to use the kiosk. I said, I don't want to use the kiosk. I want to talk to a real live person. And their response was, you need to go through the drive-thru then. I said, no, I'll go down the street to Brahms and go have breakfast there. Thank you very much. That's fact. That's the kind of life we have right now. It's tough. Businesses, it's tough on our businesses. So here's the question. I think it's the most important question I can ask you today. What in your life, it's in your bulletin, you can fill in the blanks. What in your life of enduring value has ever occurred when you were going 200 miles an hour? Let me say it again. What in your life of enduring value has ever occurred when you were going 200 miles an hour? So we have just a couple of points today, pretty straightforward. First of all, this is a battle between speed and our souls. And I really want to tell you, it's about our souls that's in the battle. Have you ever built high levels of intimacy with your spouse going 200 miles an hour? How about your children or grandchildren? Have you learned what's going on in their life by going 200 miles an hour? Have you fostered healthy, self-discovering relationships with friends going at 200 miles an hour? Some of us are exploring Christianity, some for the first time. But can you get to know the God of the Bible at 200 miles an hour? If you are a follower of Jesus Christ, can you truly open yourself up to all God has for you when your life is going 200 miles an hour? I want you to think about the richest relationships that you have, the friends that you cherish, and your experiences with them that are most memorable. I bet they happened slowly. Slowly. What about your richest moments with God? I bet they didn't happen in a rush or on the fly. Again, they happened slowly. You see, the faster our pace, the smaller our soul gets. It's always a battle between speed and the soul. King David understood the battle, and he writes about it in Psalm 6:3. I'm going to read it from the NIV translation. Listen to what David writes. My soul is in deep anguish. My soul is in deep anguish. How long, Lord? How long? David says, my soul is shrinking right before my eyes. How long will this be so? I don't like it. I don't want it to shrink. I want it to thrive. But it's shrinking. Some of us have got to admit that this is where the speed of life has taken us. Our soul is shrinking, and we don't know why. Some of us today are stressed because of the pressures of work, and the kids, and the kids are all over the place. It's just exhausting. I get it. Friday, without any warning to me, the school district, they didn't tell me first that they weren't going to have kindergarten. So, don't you think they should have told Grandpa that he was going to have your 5-year-old granddaughter all day? Holy mackerel. It was the most awesome day. But I'm going to tell you, at the end of the day, when Lacey came to pick up Malin, Grandma and I could hardly move. It was awesome. We love having our grandchildren in our lives. But I'm telling you, they move at a very different pace. So you parents, I understand it when you tell me, I'm just worn out. I just need a day of rest. I get it. Others of us are here or watching online, and you have your friends, but you're closed up inside. You don't tell them what's really going on in your life, and depression sinks in, and you don't know where to go. So we're starting several new Bible studies this week, and I hope you'll come and check them out. We've got them for men, we've got them for women. We've got a group on Wednesday nights coming up in another week or so. Some of you get into all those groups, and I see it everything. You're like addicted to ministry. I want to tell you, you're probably overcommitted. You need to learn to say the word no. Now, my wife is going to tell you, Bob, you need to learn to say the word no. She's smiling back there. Because I get it, folks. From the time I was a child, all I ever wanted to be was a minister. And I have a strange philosophy about ministry that it's 24/7. My family understands that. And I became a workaholic with it. In some of the churches I've been a part of, we would start new programs and Bob would take them on. Every new program, Bob would take it on. I was here, I was there, I was everywhere. Everywhere. I have people every month asking me, when are you coming back to do ministry in the jail? When are you coming back to do Celebrate Recovery? Are you going to do Celebrate Recovery at your church? And my wife is so pleased with me, I've learned to say no. It took me 73 years. I get it about overcommitment. I have to say no. There are some things I just can't do every day. But we run faster and faster and faster, and like David, our soul is in anguish and it's shrinking and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller every day. All right, there are 3 benefits, is point number 2. 3 principles that benefit our soul. So we just looked at Psalm 6. Turn just a few pages over to Psalm 23. I could have some of you read it from memory. You know it from memory. Let me read just the first 3 verses. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pasture. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Here's the first thing David says. Letter, if you're following in the outline, letter A. He says, slow down. He says, he makes me lie down in green pastures. If God is my shepherd, then what I must be is a sheep. We need to learn to rest. We need to learn to rest. Sheep have a hard time resting. So years ago, Clark raised sheep. We had all sorts of sheep. And I learned so much from Clark raising sheep. He's really good at what he does. And so he would say, Dad, he said, today we're going to groom the 350-pound-foot ram. We're going to trim his toenails. I said, we're going to what? To the 350-pound ram, Hampshire ram? He said, Dad, it's easy. We get him on his back and he can't do anything. Really? So it's called getting him cast. When it's down on his back, when a sheep is on his back, he can do nothing. And literally, if no one is there to help him up, he will die. So when David writes, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lay down in green pastures. The Lord says, slow down. Don't get on your back stuck. Slow down. Slow down. We need to take our foot off the pedal and let God restore our souls by slowing us down. Maybe it's saying that to you today, that you need to look at the pace of your life and you need to get it more in balance, and I pray that you do. He wants your marriage to thrive and your relationship with your kids to flourish. I guarantee all of us that there are kids out there every day in our community begging for their parents to slow down and listen to them. How often do we hear someone, especially a child, excuse me, let me restate my sentence. How often do we hear that someone, especially a child, who takes their own life, and we sit there saying, I had no idea there was a problem. The reason we didn't know there was a problem maybe was because we were going so fast, we weren't listening to them. I'm telling you, folks, we need to slow down. We need to listen to people, truly listen to people. Don't always tell them the answers. Sometimes you can give them the answer, and sometimes they have to find it themselves, but they need someone to listen to them, and we need to get our foot off the pedal and slow our lives down. We all have to figure out our pace of life, but for most of us, we need to slow down so God can restore our souls. Next, he leads us by quiet waters and restores my soul. That's B. You need to intentionally, and I have that word underlined, intentionally move into soul-building environments. You need to be intentional about it. Luke 4 says it was Jesus' custom every week to go into the synagogue to refresh his soul. Let me read it for you. It's in the 16th verse. And he came to Nazareth where he had been brought up, and was his custom. He went in on the Sabbath day, and he stood up to read. It was his custom to be in synagogue. You can say, well, that's a negative. That was just he did it because it was a habit. No, he did it because he knew that's what he needed to be doing to get his soul refreshed. Jesus had a group of 12 guys that he did life together with. He hung out with them. He lived with them, shared life together. They did communion together. Why did they do that together? Because it builds their souls. I love hanging out with you. I love being with you. I love doing life with you. But we need to intentionally come together. The writer of Hebrews is as clear as it can be in Hebrews 10, 24 and 25. Listen to what he says. Let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, and not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, all the more as you see the day of drawing near. We need to come together and restore each other and encourage each other and build each other up. That's why we come. Every summer, Brenda and I get to go away for a couple of days or sometimes a week or two. I get to be you. I get to sit in the pew, and I don't have to plan the worship service. I don't have to preach. But here's what I found. Rest alone is not good enough to refresh my soul. I need gatherings like what we have every Sunday morning. I need to be with you. I need to be with people who breathe and refuel my soul. I cannot tell you, some of you can imagine, we've talked a bit about it. I can't tell you how difficult the pandemic was for me mentally, because for 13 weeks I couldn't be with my people. This building was shut up, locked up. We even told Karen to go home, work from home, and I worked downstairs in the basement all week, nobody in the building. Come together on Saturday to record a message. Boy, did we struggle back then trying to figure out how to do the camera. Poor little Andrea, she was so patient with us. She did all the computer work for us for those 13 weeks. I hated it. I love those people that served there for 13 weeks. I hated being away from you guys. I just can't tell you how much I hated it. See, I need to be with people of like precious faith. These are the kinds of environments that our soul gets refreshed and refueled. These are the kind of environments that force us to deal with issues we never face anywhere else in the world. I love the guy who says, Bob, I feel closer to God when I'm on the golf course. I say, yeah, you pray more on the golf course. You pray your drive is going to go straight and all your putts are going to go in. You pray that your opponent's ball is going to slice into the out of bounds. You do pray more. And I find it interesting. That the same guys who get all over their wives for talking to their plants, do any of you, don't raise your hand, any of you wives ever talk to your plants? Some of you are looking at each other. Those are the same guys that are talking to their golf ball, as if their golf ball was going to stop when they said stop. Did you see the irony of that, the stupidity of talking to a golf ball? I have been there. So many times over the years I've heard people say, Bob, I just had a horrible week and I didn't want to come to church, but here I am, and boy, did I really need it. Because God meets us where we are, right here. And our souls get refreshed every week. I don't put pressure on anybody to come to church. We're all, in my mind, grown adults. But I want you to be intentional about it. I want you to be regular about it, just like Jesus was. Be faithful about it. This is what grows our souls and refuels and refreshes us. We need to be disciplined about it. If we don't, we get what is called sunken heart syndrome. And we don't want that. We need to slow down and find activities or environments that refresh our soul. C, you need to open yourself to God's activities. Open yourself to God's activity. Some of us have accomplished so much in our jobs in our life, but we very rarely consider what's going on with our souls. You are successful, you are secure, you are highly thought of, you are influential, or you may be influential in our community, but your soul feels spiritually dead. For the high achievers especially, they need to know it is always about speed versus soul. And that's number one. It's always about speed versus soul. Speed will always win out unless you slow down, put yourself in soul-building environments, and open yourself to God. You don't need a smarter smartphone. Do you realize that? You don't need to get the iPhone whatever, the Galaxy whatever. You don't need a smarter iPad. You don't need a better time management app, because they won't help the problem. You have to make a decision about whether you're going to run your life by speed, or is your soul more important than the speed that you run at. Like I said before, nothing of enduring value happens when you're going 200 miles an hour. The most important thing that I can offer my wife, our son, the people I work with, and this church is a renewed soul. Now, I put that into personal. I made it about me. But that applies to all of us in this room today. The most important thing you can offer your spouse, your kids, your job, and your church is a renewed soul. But people will say, but Bob, when you say no to somebody, doesn't it disappoint them? Yeah, it might. Jesus set a pretty good example for all of us to follow. That's point number 2. Jesus sets the example. So I want to read Mark 1:35 to 36. I want to read it in the message version. I should say message translation. Here's what it reads. While it was still night, way before dawn, he got up and went out to a secluded spot and prayed. That's Jesus. Simon and those with him went looking for him. They found him and said, everybody's looking for you. You see, they came looking for Jesus with their texts and their emails and their voicemails. But Jesus said no to speed. It wasn't because he didn't love them. It wasn't because he didn't care about them. He knew there were some things that speed cannot do. And I have to say this, looking at Lotus over here. She liked the title of my sermon because her husband's name was Speed. So she could tell you what speed couldn't do. Let me say it again. This is the conclusion, folks. There are some things that speed cannot do. It is time to slow down. A time to be intentional about helping our soul by being in good environments, church, small groups, Bible studies. And it's time to open ourselves up to how God wants to lead us, God's activity in our lives. If we want balanced lives, we've got to do it, folks. Speed doesn't win. God wins when it's the battle for the soul. All right, we're going to sing a beautiful song by Michael W. Smith. Some of you are saying to me, Bob, I don't see any way that I can slow my life down. I don't see any way. My boss is demanding. Some of you are saying that, and you are the boss.